Disneyland is an absolute marvel of a theme park that opened all the way back in 1955 in Anaheim, California. It paved the way for hundreds of other theme parks to open around the world in the following decades and has built up into a fantastic theme park in the process. It features over 30 actual rides in the park, the most of any single Disney park. It also features 4 solid roller coasters within that ride lineup, including the first tubular steel roller coaster ever, Matterhorn bobsleds. I had the pleasure of visiting this park for the first time in May of 2024 and had an amazing 3 days here and California Adventure. You should definitely try and at least spend 2 days at the resort, as there's easily enough at just Disneyland to cover 2 days worth of riding attractions. Being the original Disney park, it has your classic hub and spoke design with the main street leading up to the castle and then splitting off in every direction to get to each individual land. This makes the park pretty easy to navigate for a first-time visitor, although there are some dead ends towards the outer edges of the park where it expanded. Obviously, this is one of the most expensive parks in the country, with tickets ranging between $100 to $200 a day, depending on how many days you spend there and what time of year you go. There's even an additional price for park hopper tickets if you want to switch between the two parks offered, but honestly, if you want to save some money, just go to this park for a couple of days. In terms of getting to this park, there are a variety of different options. You can just park near the park and go through security before entering the provided tram to downtown Disney. You can then walk down the main pathway and to the left to get to Disneyland. I stayed at the Disneyland Hotel, located on the other side of downtown Disney, so it was a very easy walk to just go from the hotel, go through a small security line outside of downtown Disney, and then go through the main pathway towards the park. Your first impressions of this park is the iconic Disneyland train station and, of course, Main Street USA. There's not really any rides in this area aside from some small vehicles you can ride up and down the street. There are a bunch of shops and restaurants located on either side of the street, though, including the Jolly Holiday Bakery, which my family went to a bunch of times during our visit, and I highly recommend. At the end of the street is the main castle of the park, which is obviously a lot smaller than the other Disney castles, but it still looks good when you get closer to it. What's also cool about it is you can actually walk right through it to get to Fantasyland, unlike the one in Florida. I'd recommend starting your day going to the left into Adventureland. You can honestly start your day off with the great attractions located here, or keep going towards Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, as those rides usually get the longest ride lines in the park. Since we're in Adventureland, though, we'll talk about the great rides here first. You pass the iconic Jungle Cruise, a guided tour of the animatronic animal-filled jungle, although this one doesn't have an indoor section like the one in Florida. You then get to a Disneyland exclusive, at least for the US, Indiana Jones, a fantastic, thrilling dark ride with great practical effects and similar vehicles to Dinosaur at Animal Kingdom. This is one of my favorite sections of the park with how compact it is and how it's chock full of great theming and everywhere you look, and 2 of the best rides in the park. You can continue into the park by going into New Orleans Square. This is where you can immediately see Pirates of the Caribbean, with this version being almost twice as long as the one in Magic Kingdom. It also features the restaurant right next to the ride, the Blue Bayou. There's a bunch of back streets located in this section that really show the attention to detail that went into creating this land. There's also, of course, the Haunted Mansion with an all-new queue line that wasn't quite done when I went in May, but it looks really well themed and has many details to discover while you're waiting for that fantastic, spooky dark ride. This ride also gets an overlay during the Christmas season that many locals flock to ride, themed around the Tim Burton classic Nightmare Before Christmas. As you continue further into the park, you reach the newly themed Bayou Country, previously Critter Country, with the newly rethemed Tiana's Bayou Adventure. I didn't ride this version while I was there since it wasn't open, but Florida's version was a solid water ride with great animatronics throughout your ride and a bunch of fun drops along the way to get you cooled off on a hot day. This is also where the park's Winnie the Pooh ride is located, a fun family dark ride centered around the character and his short films. The section kind of dead ends around that attraction, so you can turn around after riding Winnie the Pooh and go towards the Rivers of America to get to Galaxy's Edge. This land is a marvel to look at when visiting for your first time and features 2 of the best attractions in the park as well. It's basically identical to the one at Hollywood Studios with iconic Star Wars ships to your left and right, and of course the Millennium Falcon next to the Smuggler's Run attraction a fun interactive simulator ride where you pilot the iconic ship. There's also probably the best ride in the whole park here, Rise the Resistance, a trackless dark ride with a bunch of other complicated ride systems during your ride, and a bunch of massive set pieces as you go through and try and escape a Star Destroyer. There's a bunch of other things to do in this section, with some interesting food items to eat, and you are even able to build your own lightsaber or droid to take home with you. There's also a cantina located near the Millennium Falcon where you can get some Star Wars themed alcoholic drinks if that's on your radar. As you exit the spired planet of Batuu, you can then enter Frontierland. There's only really one main attraction at this particular Frontierland, but it's an iconic one. It's of course the wildest ride in the wilderness, Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. This is definitely the superior version of the attraction, at least within the US, and it's a really fun, thrilling roller coaster through the Wild West with some solid lateral and airtime moments along the ride. You can then return to the central hub of the park and get to the other side of the park and the remaining 3 lands of Disneyland. You can go directly through the castle to get to Fantasyland, as I mentioned before, and ride some of the oldest rides in the park. This is all of your classic Disney dark rides such as Peter Pan, Snow White, Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, Alice in Wonderland, and Pinocchio. Most of these rides, except for Peter Pan, really don't get that long of a wait, so you can just ride one after the other. And Mr. Toad is definitely my favorite of these classic dark rides, and I really wish it was still at Magic Kingdom. The section also includes Dumbo, the Teacups, Casey Jr.'s Circus Train, a carousel, and the Storybook Land Canal Boats, which is another relaxing ride to enjoy with a small wait time. You can also get on the iconic Matterhorn bobsleds here, which has 2 separate tracks within the man-made mountain, and you can hear even more of my thoughts on the attraction in my separate review I have on the channel. You pass the iconic boat ride It's a Small World as you get closer to Mickey's Toontown, which is located right under the railroad tracks. This section has a few more family-oriented rides, including the small roller coaster Chippendale's Gadget Coaster. The section also includes Roger Rabbit's Cartoon Spin, which gets a surprisingly long line, but it's still a decent ride if you have the time for it. The real highlight of this section is, of course, Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, another modern trackless dark ride with a really fun queue line that features how Mickey cartoons have evolved over the last century. The ride itself is also fantastic and easily one of the best rides in the park and well worth getting a couple of rides on during your visit. The section also dead ends, so you can turn around and go back towards the Matterhorn to get to the final section of Tomorrowland. This is honestly the section I spent the least amount of time in, but there's still some solid rides here. The Massive Lagoon has the Nemo Submarine Voyage attraction, which is very unique to this park and definitely worth doing at least once. There's also, of course, the iconic Space Mountain, which I've talked about thoroughly in a review on this channel, but that's easily the best roller coaster in the park and really smooth as well. The section also has Star Tours, Buzz Lightyear, and Autopia, where you can drive your own car around that corner of the park. The section also has the monorail station where you can take it to the front of downtown Disney when leaving the park, which was really convenient for me since we stayed at the hotel right next to the station. You can also take the monorail into the park in the morning if you want to skip some of the walking. Overall, I absolutely adore this massive park, and it's easily my favorite Disney park of the 6 I've been to. It is basically everything Magic Kingdom has, plus Galaxy's Edge, Matterhorn bobsleds, Indiana Jones, and Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. There's just world-class rides everywhere you look, and it's so easy to go on ride after ride due to how compact the park is. It doesn't have any world-class coasters like Kings Island or even Kentucky Kingdom, but it's definitely a better park overall with how much there is to do for everyone in the family. I have it only behind Islands of Adventure, Silverado City, and Dollywood in my park rankings, as those not only have world-class theming, but also world-class roller coasters. I'm sure this park will continue to get better in the coming years and add even more modern attractions, and the only thing that can maybe make this park better would be a thrill coaster of some kind, but I have no idea when that would happen. In any case, this park is still world-class with the current attractions it does have, and it is well worth a trip out to California to enjoy the Disney park that Walt built. Be sure to check out my other Disneyland coaster reviews as well as my park ranking of all the coasters in the US Disney parks, and subscribe for more theme park content.